The life of an emotionally mature adult is full to the brim with all the things the self-help industry promised you would happen if you healed enough, bought enough, believed enough, journaled enough, meditated enough, attended enough, tried enough, and peeled back another layer of the bloody onion. But the difference is, emotional maturity doesn't come from constantly working on yourself. It comes from finally understanding yourself. And once that happens, fears that have been running your life for decades fall away without you having to wrestle them to the ground every morning. You don't have to analyse everything, overanalyse everything, second guess and overthink. You don't need a committee meeting in your head every time someone sends a slightly different text. You don't need to spend 3 days wondering if they're okay meant okay furious, okay disappointed, withdrawing, leaving, punishing, or quietly planning to replace you with someone who owns linen trousers. You begin to laugh at the things that used to consume you. Not because they didn't feel real at the time, they did, but because you can finally see how much of your life was being run by fear. Fear of rejection, of disapproval, of criticism, of conflict, of being misunderstood, fear of being disliked, fear that if someone's tone changed, your whole world had changed with it. That starts to disappear. Not because you become hard, not because you stop caring, not because you become some terrifying self-help caricature striding around the garden with a green juice and a boundary script, but because you begin to trust yourself. You trust you will always know what to do. You trust that if something hurts, you can feel it. You trust that if someone dislikes your decision, you can survive that. You trust that if something ends, you won't end with it. You trust that your own inner knowing is not something to dismiss, explain away, or get permission for. You become self-loving in a very practical way, not mirror affirmations, writing "I am worthy" on a sticky note, while still tolerating someone who treats you like an emotional support appliance. Real self-love. The kind where you stop betraying yourself to stay liked. The kind where you stop needing approval before you make a decision. The kind where you stop asking people who do not know themselves to tell you who you are. You meet your own emotional needs. You stop outsourcing your peace. You stop needing everyone's advice and opinions and guidance. That doesn't mean that you stop listening to them. You can hear them, consider them, thank them, then still do what's right for you. Because you no longer have anything to prove. Not to other people, not to your family, not to old school friends, not to exes, not to strangers on the internet, not even yourself. You no longer try to prove you're good enough, clever enough, healed enough, successful or spiritual enough, attractive, generous, strong enough or deserving enough. You stop trying to win arguments in your head with people who haven't paid rent there for years. You stop trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to become impressive enough to silence the old messages. You just live. Live and let live becomes less of a phase and more of a way of being. You let people be who they are, not who you wish they were. Not who they could become if they finally read a book, found a therapist, grew a spine, got off Facebook, or stopped treating emotional maturity like an optional extra. You let them be, and then you decide how close they get to be to you. This is the difference. Emotional maturity doesn't mean tolerating everything. It means seeing clearly. Some people can stay close. Some people need distance. Some people can be loved from 3 postcodes away. Some people need to be handed back with a packed lunch and a blessing. You stop ignoring red flags because you desperately want something to work. You stop calling crumbs complicated. You stop mothering people you cannot rescue. You stop pacifying grown adults who should have learned how to manage disappointment somewhere around the time they got a national insurance number. You stop tolerating acceptable behaviour from people who refuse to look at themselves. Not with drama, not with a grand announcement, not with a 27-page paragraph message and supporting evidence. You just stop. Because once you matter to yourself, you no longer need to convince yourself that behaviour which hurts you is somehow acceptable. And perhaps the strangest part of emotional maturity is that you begin to welcome the emotions you used to fear. Sadness, fear, anger, guilt, shame, grief, disappointment. You don't enjoy them in a weird little masochistic way. You stop running from them. You stop treating them like evidence that something has gone wrong. You stop trying to heal them, fix them, avoid them, label them, or hand them over to someone else to make them disappear. Instead, you tell the truth. And each time you do that, you grow in confidence, in dignity, in discernment and self-belief and personal power. Until one day you realise something extraordinary. You're no longer frightened of your own emotional life. You're no longer frightened of other people's reactions. You're no longer frightened of being disliked. You're no longer frightened of being misunderstood. And you're no longer frightened of choosing yourself, and that changes everything. Because the life of an emotionally mature adult is not perfect. It's not painless. It's not one long spa day with better boundaries. Life will still hurt. People will still disappoint you. Loss will be hard and love will be risky. But you stop abandoning yourself inside them and making fear the boss. You stop making guilt the judge. You stop making approval the prize. You stop making other people's comfort the purpose of your life. And the outcome is a life on your terms. Not selfish, not cold, not detached from love, just yours. Quieter, clearer, kinder, stronger, simpler. A life where you can finally say, I know who I am. I know what I need. I know what matters. I have nothing to prove. And I'm no longer available for a life that requires me to disappear.